To help us get started a little quicker, we're going to use a tool that the USWDS team has developed called USWDS Compile. We'll learn a little bit more about that soon, but you can use this in your project too. So let's dive into part one, cloning. So we have part one here in front of us, and as the alert at the top of the section suggests, if we're seeing this preview, it means that we've already copied down the code and have set up the project locally. So this guide is accessible to everyone, regardless of technical expertise. So if you know someone who wants to learn more but might not be technical, this tutorial is perfect for them. If you do run into any issues running this project, we're happy to help. You can find several ways to get in touch on the USWDS community page that Charlie has up on the page right now, on the screen right now, I should say. I'll post that link here in chat. And then we can go back to the tutorial and take a look at part two, since we already have this done. So we need to install USWDS and USWDS compile. So let's open up a terminal window in VS Code and install USWDS. You can see Charlie is adding the npm install command for USWDS with the save dev flags. This is just to save it as a dev dependency. Basically, what it means is your downstream users probably don't need, this is only a development dependency and your users don't need to know about it. So this is great for local development. Next up, we'll install the compile tool. Again, at USWDS/compile, and we're going to save it as a dev dependency because we're going to be using this for active development. So compile is a tool that helps us set up the project, import assets like images and fonts, and build the code. It also has a few extras like making it easy to create and customize your project icons. More importantly, it makes it easier to migrate from USWDS Major version 2, the previous version, to the latest version, which is 3. So if you haven't migrated already, maybe consider using this tool to help you go through that process a little easier. So now that installation is finished, we're going to create a gulp file to pull in the compile scripts. We don't need to write much code here. We're going to run a command to create the gulp file, which Charlie has here, touch gulpfile.js. So when you run this in your terminal, you'll create the file locally. You can see it on the left-hand side. It's the green gulpfile.js file. And let's open up that file and import the compile tool that we've installed. So here, Charlie is importing the USWDS compile tool and saving it to a const named USWDS. So we're also going to define some initial settings. The first one is telling us what version of USWDS we want to use. In this case, we want to use the latest version of USWDS. So we're going to put 3. Next up, we're going to define where we want the project styles to live. And we can use that by using the uswds.paths.dist.theme setting. Now, this setting is telling our compile tool where our custom styles will live, like our project styles. So, for example, in your Drupal theme, this might be your custom theme directory. Finally, we're going to add some scripts to initialize our project, compile our code, and watch the code for changes. So we'll have 3 scripts: init, compile, and watch. These names will match the compile names, but they can be anything. For example, if you wanted to have exports.init become exports.scaffold or anything, you can change it. But we're going to keep it the same for consistency. So you can see here, lines 7 through 9, our scripts are called exports.init, but they're calling USWDS.init and so on and so forth.
All right, now that we've defined our scripts, let's initialize. You can see here we have this theme directory that's currently empty, and then an assets directory that only has some initial CSS. So if we go through and run npx go init, you'll see it begin to initialize. And like magic, we have some USWDS theme files. And in our assets folder, we have our USWDS assets.
Hey, look at that. Also, I don't remember if we mentioned this, but if at any point you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll look at them at the end of this walkthrough. Okay, so now that we have the files included, let's take a quick look at the tasks that we defined: init, compile, and watch. So init is only run once at the start of your project. It'll grab a copy of the USWDS static assets like CSS, images, and fonts, and it'll place them in the dist theme directory that we are defining above. So basically, it just puts things where they need to be. Secondly, compile. That's just compiling your project styles and icons. And finally, watch. We'll watch our style sheets for changes and rebuild every time we save. Now that we have our gulp file set up, let's go into setting up our theme files. Let's see. Okay. We've already added our assets, right? And we've looked at what we had before and what we have now. So let's add the styles and the JavaScript into our project. Let's open up the file called head.html. And this tutorial is based on 11D, so you might see these curly braces. That's the templating language it uses for the purposes of this demo. We wanted to keep things light and fast, so we use it on this tutorial, and we'll also use it in the rapid prototyping, like the sandbox we're going to be using on the 7th. Okay, so Charlie has added the style sheet. Next up, we're going to add an initializer script. It's called USWDS-init. And this little script goes at the head as well. I know normally you might add, or traditionally you might add a JavaScript file at the end, like before the closing body tag. But this one is a little bit special because this init script will help you prevent the flash of unstyled content on your page. So for example, have you ever been to a page and like your connection is a little slow and you might see things jump or reshift? That experience is a little jarring. So to avoid that, we're using this init script to improve that experience. So users won't see that jump on their page. All right, next up, we're going to add the USWDS.js file at the bottom. So we're going to find the default template, and before the closing body tag, we're going to add the USWDS JavaScript file. This is pretty much all that you need to set up and import the USWDS code into your project. We're going to stop our watch command, run it again just to make sure everything is working. How's it look, Charlie?
It's looking good. I think if we inspected this, we'd see that the JavaScript is loading A-OK.
Awesome. So let's dive into the code. Let's start working on our USWDS sandwich, which is affectionately called that. They're the USWDS core components, the government banner at the top of the page, and the agency identifier at the bottom. These, like I mentioned, are core components of the design system. So one goes on top, the other one goes on the bottom. All right.
So to get started, we're going to add the banner component. When you come to the USWDS website, I can show you here, you'll be greeted by a landing page. You can go to our components section here, which lists all of our components available to you. We're going to start by adding the banner. And every page, every component is going to have this kind of general information page. It'll give you a little bit of information at the top. We'll show you a preview of the component and where you can grab the code for each one right here, as well as some additional guidance for when to use it, some accessibility guidance, as well as settings for the component and change logs. So you guys can keep track of anything that we do to update the component. So first, we're going to grab the first variant here. So I'm going to grab everything in between these two section tags, and we're going to pull this over onto our project. I'm going to copy that here, and we are going to go into our index and paste that right at the top. And if we take a look at the top of our page here, you'll see currently it's just the top of the page. If we save that and recompiles, check it out. We have a banner. And if we refresh here, we can see that it opens and closes as expected.
Right, but I think it's missing a few things, right, Charlie?
Yeah. So if you take a look around here, Kenai might have observed we might be missing a couple of the images that you can see here on our preview. And that is because we have some filler source tags right here, source attributes here, that might not match your project's assets. So it's important whenever you're bringing in any of our components that use things like a source attribute to make sure it matches where you have placed these images. And right before this, James taught me a really cool shortcut here where I can select asset and image and do Command-Shift-L, and it'll actually grab every single reference to this.
Right, that's a cool VS Code feature.
Yeah.
Command-Shift-L selects all instances of this matching string in a document.
Yeah, it's very handy. So if we go into our file browser and go to assets, we can see our images are nested within assets within a USWDS directory. So if we go ahead and return here, select each of these, and then add USWDS, save, check it out. Our images have returned home.
Looks great.
I think so.
Now that our banner looks good, let's go into the identifier. And the identifier typically lives under the footer, and it has all of the required links for a federal site, like accessibility statement, and so on and so forth. You can see privacy policy here, FOIA requests. So Charlie's going to go through, follow the same steps, and get an identifier component.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to flag with the identifier is we offer a couple different variants. We do this for a couple of our components, and they are just built to preset some of your project needs. So we have Spanish and English variants of most of these. We have ones if you have multiple agencies you need to list, if you have a tax disclaimer that you need to list on your website. We have a couple of variants for you, but once again, we're just going to go ahead and grab the very first one, the basic identifier here.
Right, you'll have to look them over and see which ones best fit your project needs.
All right, and we're going to come down here beneath the footer and drop that in. If we go on our page, check it out. We can see our identifier with a familiar issue. Our logo is missing, but that's okay because we learned how to fix this already. We'll find that asset image and add the USWDS folder. There we go.
Great. Now that we have banner and identifier looking great, let's go back up to the steps and see what's next. All right. So in this part, we're going to be integrating project CSS and combining that with USWDS styles. So custom project styles with USWDS styles. This is where your brand meets USWDS, or your brand styles meet USWDS styles. So USWDS uses Sass. For consistency, we're going to convert our existing style sheet into Sass. So for the purposes of this demo and to not break the tutorial design, we're going to make a SCSS file that's a copy of the existing one. Charlie, can we look at it in the File Explorer view?
Yeah, let's check it out. So it existed before as this styles.css, and then right next to it, we've created styles.scss. If we compare the two, they look pretty identical.
Exactly. So we're going to see how we can import our custom project styles. And we're going to do that by forwarding our custom styles into the style entry point. So let's open up USWDS theme custom styles.scss. And here is where you will forward your styles so that they end up in the final output. And you might notice something a little different. If you've been working in Sass for a while, you'll see the @use and @forward. Those are relatively, well, those are new-ish features of Sass. And you can learn more about it on their website, but it's basically just like we're going to forward, pass along the styles, and @use uses the styles in the current context. All right. So there are nuances to using both @use and @forward, and you'll have to check out the documentation on Sass for that. But let's open up our gulp.js file to add our styles into the compile script. So you can see Charlie is using another compile setting called source.project.sass, and this is basically telling it where our project styles live. So after we have defined that, we're going to run the compile task just to test it out and make sure everything compiles correctly. So he's expanded his terminal and he's writing out the compile task. And after a second or two, we're going to see that build test has completed successfully. Okay. So now that we're compiling our styles together, let's go ahead and open up head.html and remove the initial style sheet reference from line, is it 9 or 10?
It looks like it's going to be 10.
Got you. Yeah, so we don't need this anymore because we're combining the styles, like I mentioned.
So we can go ahead and remove that initial style sheet as well.
And we're going to be running the gulp watch command, right, Charlie?
Yeah, so now that we've got everything set up, we're going to start playing around with some style changes. And to help us along in active development, we're going to run the watch task, and this will save us from having to manually recompile for every change. So we can do that with npx gulp watch. We'll see the same compilation messages. And now you can see that it's finished building Sass and it is starting to watch. So any Sass changes that we make will then automatically trigger recompilation.
Right. So let's open up USWDS theme custom styles and let's add some USWDS color tokens. So here's where we'll add the color tokens. Charlie is going to the code example that we see in front of us and copying over some colors defined in this root. Now this is using CSS custom properties, commonly known as CSS variables. And we're going to combine this native CSS feature with the USWDS Sass. In this case, you'll see that we're using a USWDS color function to call the system color token of blue warm, for example. And to do this, to combine Sass with CSS in CSS variables, we need to use this string interpolation, which is the hash and then the braces surrounding the color function. So you can see on the screen, Charlie has highlighted it. Thanks, Charlie.
My pleasure. So we'll go ahead and save and recompile here, and then I will do a hard refresh here. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice some of these colors have changed.
Right. And the change is minor, but one of the benefits of using the color tokens is that it relies on a color grading system to ensure that your colors always meet contrast requirements.
Mhm.
So, Charlie, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we use a color grading system. You can kind of see them here. We'll announce the color and then the grade that it is. And with this system, any difference of at least 50 will ensure compliance. So we're using this gold 10V here for one of the yellow colors. If we were to put that on top of a gold 70V, for example, you can be sure that it will meet color contrast. And one of the benefits to that is the contrast level will translate between colors. So if we wanted to see a more drastic change, I can change this gold color to this nice indigo. And because it has that same 30V value, we know that the colors on top of that, if they met color contrast requirements for that gold color, they will also meet color contrast requirements for this pretty indigo color.
Right. Working with tokens is really fun. So I recommend you check them out on the design system website. I'll post a link in chat. All right. So Charlie, I think the only thing that's left is defining some font tokens, right?
Yeah, we
For
can do
this
that the
step at
same
least.
way. Sorry, go ahead, James.
No, I was just saying for this step.
All right, let's give that a hard refresh. Check it out. We're using some USWDS fonts.
Great. So now we can jump into the next part, which is theme settings and customization. We can make sweeping customizations with little to no code using theme settings. For example, if you wanted to change the heading font globally or a component background color, you could do that and more with theme settings. So there's no need to write custom styles. So let's open up USWDS theme.scss, and we're going to start by turning off the compile notifications that we've been seeing in the bottom terminal.
Right. So if you've noticed on each of these compilations, we provide these notifications to give you little updates about the design system and any changes that have been made, which is very helpful. But let's say you're doing some active development and you need to keep a close eye on the console to see if any errors or any logs are coming out. We can easily do that by using this nice setting here called theme show notifications and setting that to false. So now if I start this watch command again, you'll see it jumps right into the compilation. And when it's done, it'll get right into that watch without all of the notifications.
Great. And if performance is a concern and you don't want your users to download an additional font, or you just want to use the system font, you can do that too by using theme font type sans, for example, and setting that to system. And like I said, this will not download any extra font, but just use the system fonts. Alternatively, if you want to provide another font that is included in the design system, you can do that, like Public Sans, for example. And Charlie has changed that here on line 13. If you want to make bigger and bolder headlines, you can do that too by enabling a heavy setting. So you can use theme font weight heavy and set it to 900. So sweeping changes can be made to components too. Every component has theme settings that you can change to further customize without writing too much code. It's really easy to customize. So let's try that with Banner, shall we, Charlie?
Yeah, let's do it. So we have a couple different settings we can play with here. First, we can change something like the background color, and we'll use our system token ink. It's a nice black color. We can change the link color as well, and we'll revisit that indigo color that I like so much. And then we can even, if we wanted to have the banner content span the entire width of the site, we can add theme banner max width and set it to none. So before I save this, I'll scroll up. You can see here, this is what our banner looks like. As this nice light gray setting, and the width is kind of contained nice and neatly in the middle here. And
Right,
once,
those are the defaults.
right. And so we do a nice refresh and We go back to the top here. Check it out. Nice, sleek, dark mode.
Yeah, and we've quickly customized it without writing any custom styles at all.
Very quick, very easy.
Yeah. What if we wanted to change the background color to something else, Charlie? Maybe the indigo color that you like?
Yeah, we can easily reference that color token and add it. And you'll notice we have the theme link color is pretty close to the theme background color. And when you start compilation, you'll actually get a warning here saying that neither the preferred token, indigo 30 here, or the fallback match or will give proper color contrast to the link. And if we refresh it here, you can
Right.
see why.
Mm-hmm. So the system does its best to use good defaults, but if you override it to something that doesn't meet accessibility contrast, it won't stop you, but it'll definitely let you know.
And as we learned earlier, this is very easy to resolve using that difference of 50. So if we change this background color to, let's say, ADV, a darker color, it'll recompile. And you'll notice immediately we did not get that warning as we did before. And if we refresh and go to the top of our page here, we have this nice dark color that matches color contrast requirements.
Right. So now that our banner is looking good, we can return to the steps and maybe look at some identifier changes.
Yeah. Let's see. Why don't we go ahead and we can try to make it match our banner here. I like consistency. So let's remove that identifier, if I can spell, max width. And then for fun, we can also change some of these link colors to match. And this, I believe, is identifier, secondary link color. And we can set that to indigo 30 as well. And to show off that max width, I'll expand this a little longer. You can see where it stops here. We refresh and go to the bottom of our page. Now it'll take up the full width and that link color matches above.
Yes, it does. So you've changed two settings, Charlie. Can you show us the other settings that are available for this component?
Yeah. So if you go back to that identifier component page and you scroll past the component preview, this is where I talked about some of the additional guidance that we offer on when to use the component, some accessibility guidance to make sure that you are serving your entire audience, and when and how to use the identifier. At the bottom here, you'll see some identifier settings. So you can play with things like font family, your domain color, max width, and then some of those links color as well, beyond the background color.
Right, and every component page has this section. So if you're customizing a component or you want to, check it out. So now that we have our banner and identifier looking good, we're going to, let's say we have a custom application and we only want to bring in the styles that we need. Right now, within our styles, we're bringing in the entirety of USWDS. You can see that on line 2. So we don't need everything for this particular demo, right? We only need the banner and identifier. So let's see if we can only import the styles that we need.
Right.
And
So as you can see here, that styles CSS file that we're pulling in is 539 kilobytes. If instead of pulling in all of USWDS, we could define USWDS banner and USWDS identifier, and we recompile. First, you can see this recompilation went a lot faster, only 730 milliseconds compared to the 5 seconds that it took up before. And if we refresh this page once again, you can see from that 539 kilobytes, we're down to only 29.
yes, that's right, Charlie. USWDS makes it easy to only include the things that you need.
Yeah, we want to offer you a lot, but you don't need to use all of it if you don't need to, just so your project needs. So today we've learned how to set up USWDS using the compile tool, how to implement USWDS components into your project, theme customizations, using settings to modify components without writing any additional styles, and lastly, pulling in code to your project needs.
Right. And we're only just getting started. Now that you know how to set up USWDS and customize it, we're looking forward to going beyond and getting into uh, things like rapid prototyping, more customizations, extending, turning that into production-ready code. So check it
Yeah,
out.
we hope to see you on the 7th. Think we can drop a ticket link here in the chat, maybe?
Yes, that's true. I think I have it on hand. There we go. And now I will take a look at the chat and see if we have any questions. We have, is this tutorial available online? I believe it's being recorded, broadcasted live to YouTube, and it'll be captured there. Is that
Yeah.
right, Nika?
Yep. It'll exist on the Drupal for Gov YouTube page.
And I'll go ahead and I'll drop the link to the USWDS tutorial repo that we just went through in case you would like to revisit this or maybe complete it on your own time as well.
And if you want to show up in person, there is training on February 7th. Check that out if you're interested. I need to drop the link in the chat.
I saw another question from Christine about how to display the keystrokes. Someone replied with it looks like a plugin or a GitHub project that lets you do it. I simply was using I guess, what would you call it? It was a command palette.
So Visual Studio Code has a built-in tool that allows you to cast the screens. It's built entirely for demos like this. Charlie, can you quickly share your screen?
Yeah.
So it's built in, no extra plugins required. When you go into VS Code, you can open up the command palette with Command-Shift-P, and then you can type in toggle screencast mode, like Charlie is highlighting here with his cursor. And you just simply turn it on. And every time you type, you'll see the letters appear. And there's another question for, is there a similar tutorial for implementing components in the Drupal site? I'm used to implementing components. Throw changes in a theme file. I mean, I'm sure the Drupal for Gov has a lot of resources for implementing, I guess, customizing custom themes, but I don't think we've done one for, particularly for Drupal. We did speak a little bit about it in the previous year's Drupal GovCon training, but I don't believe any of that was recorded. But if you're interested in hearing more, let us know or let the Drupal for Gov folks know, and we're happy to come back. There's another question that says, though it's not advisable, can you add a specific custom color? So can we not use a system color token, use a custom color? Charlie, do you know?
For our settings and our components, you'll have to use a system token or one of our theme tokens using our color function.
That's true. There is a relatively new-ish feature that it will allow. You can set custom hex color values for some theme settings, but in those cases, we like the design system can't really help you on measuring the contrast, or like it's hard to help you when you know go off-road and use your own custom colors. But if you're constantly testing and checking for contrast, then you know I'm sure that's not a problem. But just be aware. All right, let's see what else. Is the online available on February 7th? I'm not sure. Nika, do you know?
Yeah, I answered that in the,
Oh,
I don't think it will be available for the
okay.
days of, you have to be in person.
Great. Even more reason to attend. Let's see. The last question that I see is your team also developing supporting Storybook as part of the core repo? So I'm not sure. Could you expand what you mean by supporting Storybook? I know the USWDS component library uses Storybook.js, and it's a great tool. But do you need
Nathan, feel free to unmute yourself if you just want to talk.
Yeah, I think we are working with Storybook as part of our deliverables. And by the way, great insight into using the settings. I think that's crucial. And yeah, we were just interested if your team was leveraging Storybook in any way or incorporating that into your work.
Yeah, we're using Storybook now. We had tried a few libraries and we found that Storybook offers the best flexibility and it's more intuitive. It has some nice features for design systems. So we really like using it for now, but we're not opposed to trying something new. But for now, Storybook is great and it fits our needs. So that was the last question. Are there any other additional questions? Feel free to unmute and ask if you'd like. Oh, that's a good one. Would it be possible to drop all the important links in the description of the YouTube live stream? Well, they're captured here in the chat, so I don't think it'd be too difficult. What do you think, Nika?
Are they the links for the ticket tail? You mean the event on February 7th? Is that what you are, Federico?
Oh, I see. I was thinking it was like the resource links.
No, yeah, that's what I meant. The reason is because I was originally following the webinar on Zoom, but then lost the Wi-Fi. So then on the YouTube, the links are not there. So I was just wondering if because I missed some of the links.
Oh, got you. Well, we're happy to provide the links.
Okay, I can do that too on the YouTube side as well.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. So if there are no further questions, I just wanted to say thanks. And I'll let Charlie chime in before we pass it off to Nika.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone who tuned in today. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to us. Join the community if you'd like. We have a very lively Slack channel that people get involved with, and we'd love to see you all there and at the training on the 7th.
Yes, thank you, Charlie and James. And also, I hope to see everyone next month. Our topic will be embracing the future of Drupal with AI. So I look forward to that discussion, that talk. Thank you, everyone. See you next month.
Thanks, all. Take care.
Bye, all.